The amount of times that people pay you not to work in Hollywood is really kind of staggering. It is, you're like, But you already paid me for this, but now you don't want it." And so, but I get to keep the check. Oh, okay. Right? But which I know to some people listening, they might say, "Oh, that sounds great." No, it's not, because you need it made,
You need it
because
made because that's where the real
you
money
need it
comes
made.
from. What up, y'all? Welcome to Not My Best Moment with me, Kev on Stage, where I talk to, I can actually say this now, two-time New York Times bestselling author Kev on Stage, author of Successful Failure, where we talk to winners about their losses. And that's what Not My Best Moment is about. Today, our illustrious guest is one Jemele Hill. You know her from ESPN, from SportsCenter, 2018 NABJ Journalist of the Year award winner, currently a contributing writer to The Atlantic, also hosts the Spolitics podcast, where she examines the complexities of the world through the lens of sports. She had her own show, His and Hers. She's done Carrie and Jemele Won't Stick to Sports. She's an actress. She's appeared on at least 11 credits, from Power Book Ghost 2 to Luke Cage to Below Deck, a Black Lady sketch show. But we're not here to talk about any of those successes. No, not today. That's not what this show's about. This show is about failure. Welcome to the show, Jemele. How are you?
I love that you listed my acting credits as if I played anyone other than myself in
They
any of
all
these.
count, Jemele.
You're right. Them SAG checks keep coming.
They
I love how they come out of nowhere. One day it might be $2.13. The next day it might be $110. Like, it's such random amounts that I'm just like, oh, okay. But go SAG.
Welcome to the business where you just don't know if you're buying a piece of gum or paying your mortgage. We find out in the next episode of Dragon Ball Z.
Exactly.
Before we begin, do you have any acting desires that are outside of playing a journalist or reporter or a sports journalist?
God, no. No. I mean, those roles were really surprising because I was a huge fan of the Power universe. And so for them to actually be thoughtful enough to include me, and it was like really, really a big honor. And then Black Lady Set Show, I know Robin Thede, she's great. And so these really are just people who have become, friends who looking out and have written written stuff for me. And I'm just like, I'm happy to play myself or annoying journalist anytime, but the Power fans still haven't forgiven me because they didn't like the way I grilled Zeke. And I was like, look, Tariq was supposed to have him ready, and he didn't have his boy prepared. So apparently, I kind of got under their skin a little bit. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. But no, I don't. If something comes along that is interesting, I'm happy to do it. So, if you got any leftover role, you need a reporter in Churchy, you got me, or
I might hit you up. Had I known, I
you know
would
what
have
I'm
hit you
saying?
up for we had a reporter situation next
You know what
season
I'm saying?
3.
Or, then and especially the workplace comedy you have going with the hospital. Why did the name just fly out of my mind? It's like, because some of our friends are comedian CP, who I know.
Oh my gosh, he was brilliant.
Yes, he was really, really good. And so, so if you need a medical reporter in in the fictional hospital, let me know.
I got you. So
Mhm.
obviously, if it's not painfully obvious to you all, I've known about Jemele Hill for many years. Fun fact, when I worked at All Def, I ran into her. She was having lunch at LA Live, and I walked over to her and I was like, Jemele, I'm a huge fan. Love your work, things like that. And you were like, wow, thank you. I'm having a one-on-one with my boss. So this is a good time.
Your timing was impeccable. Like, see, people do like me out here. Look at this.
1000%. I was a huge fan of His and Hers and all the black things you guys did. The Different World was my favorite one. But listen, as a follower of you, it's like, I don't know if you leaving it. I want to start at ESPN, following you on Twitter specifically. I don't know if like you leaving ESPN, what it did to people who are frustrated with you. It doesn't matter how long you've been gone from the 4 letters, that always comes up in conversation. Is that frustrating? Do you have any like feelings about leaving there? Because it's like you always have to answer that. No matter what you're talking about, it always seems to lead back to that.
No, I mean, I was there for 12 years. So I was, and 12 years in the last 4 or 5, I spent being on television just about every day. And more than anything, like you referenced his and hers, to me, that is something I will always take a lot of great pride in, is that even years later, people remember the show. People love the show, love some of the, as you put it, the black things that we did on the show, the very black things that we did. And so that it's not something that I am disappointed or look like, oh well, since I left there now, I left there in 2018. I don't find it to be any kind of indictment of what I've done since then if people still remember me at ESPN, whether that be good or bad. The only thing that is a little hard to hear sometimes is when the younger folks say, I grew up watching you. I'll be like, now
Oh,
come on. I'm not, no. It's like they treat me like I'm an episode of Different World. I'm like, what is I grew up watching Different World. It's like, what? You grew up watching me. Okay, sir, this is well into the 2000s. Thank you very much, sir or ma'am.
when I hear
So,
that, I hear that as well, and it's just like, people be like, "Man, I remember watching you when I was in elementary school. Now I got kids." It's just like, how long was I doing this? Because it doesn't
right.
ever feel like that long to me, and that's a huge chasm. Although it might only be 10 years, you could be 12 and then 22 and have a kid, or even 12 and 20. But it just feels like I wasn't doing anything that long. That you should have had that much life and been
Yeah.
aware of me at both points in your life.
This is very true. And it's like, yeah, because then I do realize I have been doing it for a long time. I mean, my first professional year of journalism was 1997,
Wow.
and so I've been doing this almost 30 years. And of course, because I started when I was 5, but but it doesn't feel as if my career has lasted that long, and then to spend almost half of it in one place, that is, it's very sobering when I think of it that way. But I'm blessed because this business is volatile. It is, again, in another one of those volatile states right now. And to still be standing after 30 years and still be able to do the things that I love is, to me, the most rewarding part.
I want you, as the kids say, to take me through there. Uh, walk me through. I don't know if it was your dream job, but I imagine as a journalist reaching ESPN at the time you were at ESPN felt like a major accomplishment. And it was at the time, I feel like you were there before Bleacher Report or Barstool they were nowhere near where they are now. ESPN, I wouldn't even say ESPN has lost its luster, but they didn't really have any competitors that were anywhere near there. And you were there at the height. You had the 6 p.m. Sports Center. And then one day you're going somewhere else. Was there any fear there? Where you like take us through that moment where you're like, okay, I'm moving on, and here's what that looks like.
So I got to ESPN in 2006, and I was hired as what they referred to then as like an independent contractor. So I wasn't even a full salary Disney employee. I mean, I got a salary for sure, but I had to pay my own medical. Yes, I did.
Really?
Yes, I had to pay my own medical and my own 401k, all of that. I paid my own benefits.
No way.
Yes, it is true. So that's how they used to do independent contractors. Now, your salary was a pretty decent salary. Like I left the job. I was a columnist, a sports columnist at the Orlando Sentinel. And so it definitely paid me almost double what I was making at the job in Orlando. But you have to factor in the fact that you're paying for all your benefits.
Yeah.
Your expenses change a little bit, but I was still coming out ahead. So it was fine. And so it was a very different structure, pay wise, than I was used to. That every 2 weeks is there, or every Thursday,
Right.
direct deposit, or you roll into the bank. And this, we got paid once a month,
Whew.
which was even crazier. I was like, what is this life like, and why am I out of money after 4 days? Like, I don't understand this life. Right? And so it was a big adjustment, and it was the first time in my career my salary actually got reported on, because it leaked that the ESPN had hired this columnist out of Orlando, and the story that got leaked about my salary wasn't true.
Oh
And
no.
it was a lot higher. Like they said I was making $200,000 a year and I was not making $200,000 a
Oh,
year.
so they count your pockets and they count the wrong number on top of that?
Right. On top of that, I mean, which I guess is good and bad,
Yeah.
but it maybe it works in the sense of people then are like, "Oh, you're worth that much," or "You ain't worth that much."
Right.
It's going in both directions. And so when I got there, I wasn't hired as a television personality. I was hired to be a columnist for ESPN.com. I was replacing Skip Bayless, who was writing for ESPN.com, and he stopped writing so he could focus full time on television and obviously become the personality that he did. And the great thing about being at ESPN is that you get to do everything.
Mhm.
And so I did radio, started doing TV, was still writing, and then I made the decision maybe around 2012, 2013, that I really needed to fully pursue television full time at ESPN because, to be totally frank, that's where all the money was.
Yeah.
And they're only going to pay us a writer so much, but you had people at the network making 5, 7, $8 million a
Whew.
year. So it's just like, and it wasn't even their contracts or hearing about them through the grapevine that was left an imprint. It was actually Matt Lauer because he had signed a new deal at NBC, and I think he was getting like 20 million a year. And I was like, that's possible? I mean, what? And so I was like, oh, let me do this TV thing. I'm out here playing. So, but the hard thing about being at ESPN is that there's a lot of really talented people that work there. It's a constant fight for real estate.
Mm.
And so you have to you got to get some breaks.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did. And Jalen Rose, he left. The show was called Numbers Never Lie. He left to just concentrate fully on the NBA, doing NBA Countdown. And that created an opening. Mike was already a host of the show, and they asked me to join the show. And, the rest, as they say, is history. Now, at the time, ESPN was considered one of those jobs you just did not leave,
Yeah.
especially if you got TV, that this was supposed to be the pinnacle. It was not on my vision board, by the way. Like, I didn't want to do television. Like, that was no, that was
Wow.
not something I even cared about doing because I was a print journalist. And back then, there was a very hard line between print journalists and broadcast journalists. Like, print journalists, I won't lie, we was kind of sedity.
I was
Like
about
the
to
print,
say, did y'all feel a
the print,
little better then?
right? We were sedity, thinking like, oh, they ain't the real journalists. We the real journalists. You know what I'm saying? Like these little pretty people on TV with their little suits and their little perfect gelled hair, and like they ain't in the trenches like we are. You know what I'm saying? That was sort of the prevailing attitude. And because of the rise of shows like Around the Horn and PTI, of course, sports reporters was always a staple, but you started to see more journalists and columnists wind up making the transition to TV because, frankly, the money was too good. And so, once I made that transition, started doing His and Hers, and then, of course, we got the 6 o'clock Sports Center. It was the power of TV was pretty evident. So ESPN was considered a destination job, maybe one of the best jobs in the industry. And to your point, no, they didn't have a ton of competition. And the idea of leaving there, most people were like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But there were a couple examples of people who left and were able to be successful. Dan Patrick being one.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Olbermann, he left and he was able to do some successful things. But it was considered a big risk because this was ESPN. And frankly, from a market standpoint, it's not a ton of places that can pay you the kind of money that they're paying you. So if you decide to leave, is that you have to be comfortable with the fact that what you left, you may never get back to financially.
Mm.
You may not get back there. Now, you will be happier in some other ways, in the sense you have freedom of movement. You get to say a little bit more. You get to be more involved, because the other thing too that ESPN wasn't doing there, like you see how Stephen A. Smith has his own YouTube show and he's able to do other things. They didn't play that there.
No, I thought that is that is, even in the scheme of like the media landscape, that is still relatively new for them.
Yes.
Like the last 2-3 years, maybe.
I would say so. I mean, but I think they realize now that if you want to have these high value, big name journalists and commentators like him, like Pat McAfee, is that you're going to have to let them do other things, because that's the price of doing business. And so it's much more accepted now that you would be able to do these things. And so when 2018 came and I decided to leave, and I do always have to reiterate that to people, I decided to leave. Still had 3 years left on my contract. I did not have to leave then. And
Because
I
it's always Jemele got fired from ESPN. I was like,
okay,
I don't remember it that way,
no,
y'all.
I never got fired. I told them that I wanted to leave, and I thought our time had kind of come to an end. And they usually they don't want to let you out of that kind of contract when you have 3 years left, but they did because I think they were facing so much heat, frankly, for having me there, that it became advantageous for them as well. And me asking them to leave, frankly, relieved them of being put in a bad light.
Wait,
And
what?
so
Remind the people who don't know, why were they facing heat for having you?
they were facing heat because of some comments that I said about Donald Trump, the first presidency. And so Donald Trump 1.0, I had a lot to say about him. And so, yeah, I said it on social media, as I have to correct people. I didn't say it on Twitter. Okay. I mean, I didn't say it rather on Sports Center.
Mhm.
It was like you tuned in and I started the show with, guess what? Donald Trump's a racist.
Right.
Like, no, it's not what happened. And because of my comments, it really put ESPN in a weird crosshairs that they weren't used to being in. This was, they were already kind of, the people on the right, conservatives, were coming after them because they were sort of fresh off giving Caitlyn Jenner the Arthur Ashe Awards, which the conservatives lost their mind about, which is really hilarious when you think about it today, because Caitlyn Jenner is a big conservative.
Right.
And it's like, you would have thought that'd have been cool, but it wasn't. And so they gave Caitlyn Jenner the Arthur Ashe Award, and then people started saying ESPN had went woke and all this. And yeah, their favorite word. And in fact, they used to call me and my friend Michael Smith, our Sports Center woke center. It was just like we wasn't doing nothing but showing up black. Like that was it.
That's
That was
woke
like we
enough,
were.
Jamel.
That was I guess I was like, wow, we just really literally came to work, and all of a sudden we are. They acted like when they turned the Sports Center. Mike and I was on there in dashikis. With our fists raised in the air, opening every Sports Center. It's
Only covered
like,
HBCU scores.
right, exactly. They're like, the hell with the Giants.
Right.
What's going on in Morgan State? Like, no, we were still covering sports. And so ESPN was in a very challenging moment for them because they'd always been apolitical. They'd always been the cool kids, well liked by pretty much everybody. And they found themselves, just by virtue of having me and Mike and Bomani and Dan Lebertard, that people were starting to change how they perceive the company. And I don't think it's because anything different was being said. I think it's just literally they saw Negroes and and it got a little frightening for some of them. And you got a Cuban guy, you got women. They're like, what kind of anarchy is happening at ESPN? Where's these old white dudes we've been used to growing up with that's giving us the highlights? We don't like this. And so next thing you know, they had, pretty much been branded ESPN a liberal institution. But all that being said, it was, and listen, I say this all the time. It's the longest job I ever had. It's the best job I ever had. And while the end was a little awkward, it doesn't take away from all the things that I did there. And so once I made the decision to leave, it was a little frightening. I mean, I had some stuff lined up,
Mhm.
but again, it goes from that direct deposit every Thursday to like every day I'm hustling.
Man.
I'm out here slanging these opinions. Like, what are we doing? So I'm stacking I'm selling opinions out the truck. All of a sudden, I'm Master P. I'm the ice cream woman. Like, what? So I had to, for the first time in my career, become an entrepreneur. And that
Mm.
was a really scary thing because journalists don't do math. Yes, we're very bad at it, like for the most part. And I think we're, because we're more creatively inclined, we're accustomed to thinking along the lines of creativity and not actually as business people. So for the first time in 2018, I actually had to become a businesswoman.
That makes so much sense. If you're lucky enough to live a long life, often that comes with a lot of transitions. You didn't think that job would ever happen. Now it's the greatest job ever. Now you want to move on, but you've been used to a certain type of job, and now you got to learn a brand new whole skill set. And speaking about that entrepreneur thing, you in the similar boat as I am now. where you gotta like sell these ideas, but your career is not as much in your control as it used to be. Now you're pitching to networks and things like that. So catch us up on the last few years where it's been, what has it been like for the last few years where it's not been, steady paycheck, even back to when you were first a journalist, and everything you pitch or that gets developed doesn't always get made.
So right now, I would say is a really frightening time in entertainment and in journalism. Uh, a lot of people, I mean, Kev, you and I are here in LA, and this place has not recovered since the strike at
No.
all, right? And the strike was when it was really very eye opening, because then you saw, or at least I saw, with how connected the entertainment industry is to the media industry. I mean, I knew they were sort of loosely connected, but then that connection was like real vibrant. Like all of a sudden, this media company is deciding not to hire people because they're like, well, it's a strike, and then we got to conserve money, and because you have so many companies now that have multiple divisions, they do film, TV, and media, right? So
Mm-hmm.
everything's all jumbled up together, and journalism is essentially under monopoly rule, where you have like six people who own all the media,
Yeah.
and that makes it even more challenging whenever there's any kind of economic subtraction.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last, I would say, 3 years have been tough. They've been really tough because the podcast industry changed a lot. When I first started podcasting in 2019, that was like when the gold rush happened in America.
Man.
Not that I was alive then, but I imagine
Man.
where people hitting, the gold rush. It was probably like the oil rush where you just like everybody getting a check.
Man, I try to tell people that it was like people rented studios. And I mean, even me, I'm so grateful I signed a long-term lease because that money, and I thought when the pandemic happened, I was like, oh, the bottom's going to fall out. And the opposite happened. It like jumped up, but then it fell out
Uh,
worse than I could have ever imagined, and hasn't recovered for
no, it is
for
not.
a lot of
And
people, including me.
no, it hasn't. Like you, I was living in 2019, 2020. Like that was the time. And I think because we were inside, that the industry, the number of people listening to podcasts, like really exploded. And so it felt like a good time. A lot of media companies, they were, handing out big contracts because they wanted names, and they were like, okay, we wanted people who have the potential to attract audiences. And then I think there were some examples where that's not always the best way to grow a
Mm-hmm.
podcast. And there was some setbacks for some people. And then that started a general industry contraction, which, I wound up leaving Spotify. And like you, during that time, thinking like, oh, as you said, during the pandemic, like I was very financially healthy during the pandemic because we was inside. And so, um, and when that kind of, wore off, and during the pandemic is when I decided to scale. And one thing I definitely learned is, especially if you are a Black entrepreneur, scaling is so difficult. And, like you, I rented I'm currently in it. This is my office here. I have a podcast space upstairs that was built for me by Spotify.
Mm.
Shout out to them. They did that. That was part of the scaling and us doing more business together beyond just my podcast. And so, because I created a podcast network with them, and so the goal was to do a bunch of podcasts out of the studio. Let and really build something. Build a network. And Spotify, we had some differences in opinion about what that looked like
Mm.
and how that was going. And so ultimately, it was best that we separate. All right. So I go through another separation with a major company. And because, I mean, I think at that point we had two podcasts on the roster, and it was a third one that was coming, but that never happened because of our separation. And so, bottom line is that the scaling up didn't happen.
Mm.
And meanwhile, I've signed this lease in this building I signed a lease for like 5 years. And so it is, Let me tell you, talk about not my best moment. If I could turn back the hands of time, dog, trust me,
When I
I
tell
would not be here.
we made the exact same mistake at the exact same time. I'm still in the sound stage, which everybody thinks, oh man, you got the big studio. Brother, if they would have let me out of that lease 2 years ago, I would have been gone.
Kim, if they came to me right now, I'd pack up all my stuff and I'd be like, bye. Like I would leave here like I got warrants, like straight up. Like it would be the easiest thing. I'm going, please, because people should know, like as one of the results of the pandemic is like commercial leasing space has like cratered,
Yeah.
and it's like a lot of people are working remotely, working out of home, and even in the podcast industry, it's like there are, I like to think I have reasonable rates,
Yeah.
but people are, deciding to do this out of home or doing it much cheaper. And so it's not a great time to be in that business either. And so, yeah, this is my albatross right now is this damn building that I'm in. So you got some friends, Kev, holla at me. Let me
Listen,
know.
I thought in my studio, I was like, oh man, we gonna be renting it out. And it's just like, no, you're not.
No, you're not.
People
Nope.
are doing Zoom and StreamYard and Riverside. And I think even audiences have accepted less production value. So you don't have to be on a set. I think I tell people all the time, we can consume a lot of media like this. So
Mm.
there's a limit to how much or how good it has to be for you to even care. Okay, so you're stuck in a lease like I am. Thanking the Lord, January 2026, I'm released from the shackles of that uh, that building.
You ain't got that far to go. Oh my God, you see the promised land. I got
Man,
like 2 years.
I'm right
I'm like, oh my
there. I'm right there. But also,
Mhm.
you have like projects, like the podcast that didn't come to fruition. You had TV shows and documentaries. Like, tell us about some of the things that were in development that you were excited about banking on, but didn't end up happening the way you thought they were going to.
I mean, this town is so much. It's hurry up and wait, right? And so, um, again, so this entertainment industry wide contraction is happening where you would think that they'd be buying more content because of people's appetite seems to be endless when it comes to
Yeah,
content. That is actually not what's happening at all. And the one thing that can get very frustrating for creators, and then I think especially Black creators in particular, is that you're constantly at the mercy of somebody else.
yeah,
And um, we've had projects, my production company, Lodge Freeway Media, which I do, which I'm partnered with my best friend from college, Kelly Carter, who's an entertainment journalist. And I mean, we've had like there was a comedy that we really felt really good about that we are well, technically we are still developing it with Gabrielle Union, and it was the one that we thought felt like was in the rawest form, in the sense of like, oh, we kind of had the idea, we had the concept, and we threw it out there, but we honestly didn't expect to sell it that quickly. We had some other things that were much further along, much more concrete, but they loved the idea. And so we initially looked like we had something worked out with Showtime. They bought the pilot. So we were feeling really good
right.
about ourselves. Like, yes, we sold something. And as what happens sometimes in this business is like the amount of times that people pay you not to work in Hollywood is really kind of staggering. It is, you're like, but you already paid me for this, but now you don't want it. And so, but I get to keep the check. Oh, okay. Right. But which I know to some people listening, they might say, oh, that sounds great. No, it's not, because you need it made,
You need it
because
made because that's where the real
you
money
need it
comes
made.
from.
Correct. It's like, and we're talking about one-time check versus you getting many checks. You
Yes.
want many checks, not just one.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not like the what they pay you to not do. It's not, it's not life-changing money ever. But so we had to deal with them, and then they decided that they want to switch up and not focus, because this was a 30-minute comedy, and they want to focus then, because of some successes they had on their network, on like hour-long
Hmm.
and all of or dramedies and dramas and whatever. And so they said, hey, we're kind of not doing this comedy thing right now. I'm like, well, okay. So then we take the script that we had and we rework it. And, it's great because like Gabrielle Union, she was just EPing it, but she loved the script so much that she's like, I think I might want to do this. Like, let's see where this goes. And it's like, hey, your name in a room, we feel good about those chances. But even that, like you can have many stars
Yeah.
attached to something and they still like, no. Right. And so we're still developing that. But that, I mean, Ken, we started developing that project in 2019.
Oh,
Okay. And it's enough to drive you crazy, but that's why I think it's important that, especially in LA, that when there are events and things that where we're all in the same space and can commiserate and share these stories, and that's this way everybody isn't thinking, okay, so it's not just me.
yeah.
And w- I heard the guy who created Squid Games talk about his road into getting that made. 10 years, Kev.
10 years.
Everybody said no to this man. Everybody. And all it took is one yes. And he got it done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think hearing those stories gives me a little more fuel when the low moments come to where you're like, I can't sell nothing out here. I can't sell ice to a penguin. Like, what is going on? And so, yeah, we had the setback of that. And then there's this documentary that I've been trying to do for the last 3 years that is at various stops and starts. And that those hearing those no's constantly makes me really respect the people who are in this business. And I don't care what type of movie it is. It could be Soul Plane Part 62. I don't care. If you get it made, I got so much respect for you because you got it made. All right. Now, I've certainly had some wins, and I was just up for an Emmy for producing and writing for the Simone Biles docuseries, Simone Rising, that's on Netflix. And I've had other little successes, but of course, it's the no's that really
Yeah.
stick with you because you feel like you go through these periods in this business where you feel like you're just not making any progress and that you are just kind of flying in a just a certain flying pattern that you just like,
You
I'm
just
not landing.
circling the airport.
You just circling. And so with these last couple years being, really slow in this business and not just with entertainment, but also, another great way that I certainly was able to supplement my income was with speaking engagements.
Mm.
And me and some of my friends who are kind of in the business of, talking about race or politics, or in my case, sports, race, and politics all together, because of this national attack on DEI, on anything Black, it's like universities have basically stopped calling.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, they have basically, I mean, universities, organizations, because they don't want to come up under fire, because all it takes is, one person to say, well, look who they bring into campus and look what they're talking about. And that's DEI because so many states just outlawed. They just put everything that's not white, they just make it DEI. They don't care what it is.
Listen, and
It's like that, but that's the political reality that we're living in. And so a lot of, my friends who um, go and talk to young people, young universities, or even just talking about what it means to be a Black journalist in this moment, that's considered now controversial to be saying on college campuses.
so how
So
do
that,
you, man, you got you getting hit from every possible angle career wise.
yeah, I'm catching strays
You
everywhere.
catching strays. You got Hollywood alone. If it was just that, that's a lot. You've got
Mhm.
podcasting alone, which if it was just that, that's a lot. You got speaking engagement with which, after the pandemic, you think, okay, we can go outside again. Now outside's open, but your specific areas of expertise, which were once a commodity and maybe even, right around George Floyd, I always say it like this. I don't know a better way to say it, but it was I'm sorry, Black people money was flowing.
Oh,
Every
listen,
company,
the white guilt money,
oh my God,
it was so good.
brand deals and
Man,
it,
we was having a time.
man. And it was like from Black Squares and the combination of Black Squares and the pandemic, it was like, you know what, we really haven't. I think because it was like, for whatever reason, during that time in America, it was very highlighted the discrepancy in pay. It wasn't like really didn't have anything to do with George Floyd's passing, except that people were like kind of calling brands to task. Like, y'all say this, but look at your C-suite, look at your boardroom, look at what you pay even, a white influencer versus a black influencer. Look how much you invest in these shows. It was like, we see you, we hear you, we apologize. Here's our checkbook. Here's us saying our sorry. And that was really just to bring things more equal.
Right.
And
That wasn't even us getting ahead. It
no,
was like, oh, we didn't realize we were having you at the bottom. Now let's at least bring you up to something that's remotely,
just
sort of like
reasonable.
not
I don't even think
insulting,
we ever
but just
even
reasonable.
reached what white
No.
counterparts were making. It was just like,
Mm-mm.
well, the discrepancy can't be as large as it was. And then, as time went on, and really the combination of time and Trump really was like, we ain't doing this, and nobody's really calling us to task for it. So now it feels like even worse for Black creators.
Yeah, it is because now, we've seen these organizations which wind up getting doxxed. Like you look at what happened with the Fearless Fund. You have two Black women who decide to start a venture capital fund for other Black businesses, Black women who are entrepreneurs, which should be, to me, very non-controversial because Black people have such a little access to capital. And I think it's something like somewhere between 1% and 3%, like we're represented in these venture capital endeavors. And so they were trying to start a fund that acknowledged just how difficult it is for Black businesses to be able to scale and to grow and to be supported, and they got sued.
I
Because
didn't.
there's
I'm not familiar with this
yeah,
story.
they got sued, and
Who
I'm
sued
not
them?
sure what. So it's I don't remember every single
Okay.
detail, but I know they got sued, and they I think had to do things kind of another way, but that was partly what was happening is that you would get these sort of white conservatives
Mm,
that would say like, "Oh, Fearless Fund, that's discriminatory against white
yeah.
people," and then they wind up in a court battle, and it's just
It's
like,
basically the
"What?"
opposite of what happened in the pandemic is now
It
happening.
is. I mean, I was trying to follow the logic of so like on one end, y'all keep telling us to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, we do it, and then you sue us about it because you're not included. Total help me sing. Like help me help you. I want to get this
Total
because
help
what
me
am I
sing is
missing?
such a Black thing. That's just like
It is so
that
right.
is so Black and it's perfect though.
But it's true. It is just so like all of those kinds of initiatives, like of course, obviously, more recent example is Target. Like so
I
they
was just
start
gonna
all
say
these
that.
yeah, Target, all of these different companies that in 2020 it was like Black folks, we sorry, we should listen. Now it's like, shut up, sit down, go we don't want to see y'all nowhere. And because they have the force of the government behind
Right.
this, that's what makes it different. And we have some dishonest characters that are going around and really attacking these businesses and these universities. And as a result, if you are these universities that are bringing in, a variety of speakers, suddenly you get a little afraid about bringing in the speakers that you used to. And so it's really been a wide scale attack. And it's not just limited to the speaking things, because even with the media and how that much that has changed,
Yeah.
it's like a lot of things that have been normalized that shouldn't. And so right now, I think, look, if I wish I had less dignity, every day I'd be like, God, why did you bless me with respect for myself and dignity and actually caring about the type of person I am? Because I'm telling you right now, if I wanted to do a right wing switch up, this would be the perfect
Oh
time because
my
the
God,
money
Jamel.
is flowing over there. I'm like,
You might make
man.
$1 billion for real.
I'm dead serious. And I'm just like, oh, why do I have to have respect for my people and love them? Jesus. Just
It's
wish
so
I
funny. Sometimes as a Black person, it'd be like in the long run you're better off this way, but the way it be looking, it'd be like you can see people taking the play.
right.
Like you
I was like, it's despicable, but I kind of get
you see it. You
it.
like, man, you see them people be like, bro, I got to take the check. I remember when you didn't talk like this. I remember, and I remember that's not even Black people only. I remember white journalists like, you didn't used to talk this way.
I
But you
know.
see the money, you like, man, now you start saying some stuff, and all of a sudden you got your own show, your own network, your own this and that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand how it happens, and because when times get hard, the bills start coming, they ain't
Listen,
gonna stop. So
right?
you're like, what do I have to say? Okay, that's it. All right, I guess I can start there. So, I mean, but that is the part I think when you're facing adversity or when you are running into some challenges, it really does show who you really are
Yeah.
because there's plenty of ways in the last couple of years, I could have made my life a lot easier
Hmm.
if I would have, again, had far less respect for myself
Right,
than I
right.
did. But I ain't ruled out OnlyFans yet, Kev. I ain't ruled it out. Now, listen, when I saw old girl, what she say? She made 42 million. I was like, a year? What do I have to show? I just need to know, just in case these times get too hard. I'm like, look, if I start showing feet over there, I don't want to hear nothing from you because I might be showing feet. Say, then we'll work our way up. They started feet and ankles. And then next thing you know, I'm
Sometimes
like,
that
all
pays
right,
the bills alone.
here go this kneecap.
So,
Here I
like,
go.
before I let you go, I want to know from the outside looking in, you wouldn't think you have had any negativity, right? Or losses in your career, but it's obvious. I mean, I know because I just know how the industry is. We just don't really talk about our losses, which is one of the main reasons we do this podcast. But how do you keep the faith? How do you keep your like mental health well during, because I would say working in entertainment and specifically in LA, you deal with an unhealthy amount of rejection that most industries you don't have in the entertainment industry. And then you specifically have the negativity on like socials, right? It's, at least on Twitter. Your Instagram doesn't seem to be as bad, but on Twitter, you Jon Snow pulling the sword out like every day. It's like, bro, where's the cavalry? Where's the people from the Riverlands to come to your help? But like, how do
I'm
you
like the
not
battle
lose
of
your
bastards fighting for my life.
every
Like,
time,
every
every
time I
day?
go.
Your words get twisted probably more than anybody else I follow. You are very clear with your words. And they make that whole, if you say I like pancakes, I mean you hate waffles, that happens to you every
Oh,
day on
every time.
Twitter. So how do
Yeah.
you maintain, because you and your husband seem to be very happy, you know, outside looking in, you seem to be, doing okay, but is that true? And if so, how do you keep that
You
positive
know,
outlook?
he and I'm so glad that these periods of career uncertainty that I'm going through right now, that he has really been a rock for me. And of course, I don't expect him to, like, of course your partner's there to support you, listen to you, all those things. But I also am very cognizant of the fact that I don't want him to think he's got to fix me.
Mm,
Right. And so, like, you don't have to fix me. Like, you listening, supporting, like, that's enough. I mean, I'll do, of course, we'll talk about it, but I'll do my internal work so that, like, I'm not putting all of that necessarily on you. And he I'll say the clean version of what he said, but the last time we kind of had a talk about, like, I was telling him about some things career wise that I was just feeling really uncertain about. Like, technically right now, Kev, I don't really have a job. Okay, I don't. Right, but
you still doing this for free?
it,
You ain't send me no invoice or nothing?
no invoice. I was like, technically, I'm a little unemployed right now, so to speak. I mean, I'm still doing my writing for the Atlantic, obviously, and but we wrapped season one of Spolitics already, and figured out what the next move will look like.
Hmm.
And so, at any rate, as I'm facing this sort of level of uncertainty, I talked to him about it, and he said, "Well, I think you need to remind yourself who you are," and he was like, "You remind yourself you are Jemele Hill." You
And
know,
that carries weight. That's Marlo
yeah.
Stanfield.
And
My
I said,
name is
"Oh,
my name.
correct."
Like
I mean,
seriously, like I don't know if
yeah.
you know all the time. Like I'd be cool with you, but I'm never unaware you're Jamel Hill. You are Jamel
well,
Hill.
Well, it can, as you said, we live in a city and we're in this industry where you face a complete unhealthy amount of rejection. And so it does, for the first time in really maybe since I first started in this business, like I'm going through a little self-doubt. And that is a foreign feeling for me.
Yeah.
And wondering like, okay, where do I need to pivot? How do I need to do this? So I've been talking to a lot of people just to kind of figure out like, oh, okay, I see what they did there, and just picking their brain and just being able to share. But it can, yeah, it could get tough because people do see the outside picture and they think that everything's just perfect and rosy, but it takes a lot to do this. And and especially like that's why I love the fact I haven't started your book yet. It's at home. It's right on my nightstand. I got two books ahead of it.
All
It's like a
right.
little assembly
I'll wait
line.
my turn.
All right, and then I got to then I'll get to yours. But just seeing some of the things that you put out on social media about it was really it really resonated with me because when I wrote my memoir, I didn't make the big New York Times bestseller list, and I was crushed about it. I was really crushed about it.
I wanted to I wanted to ask you how that, because I assume just from knowing what I know about you that had to be a goal for
It
you.
was, and then I did, in talking to some other authors, and they made me feel so much better. They were like, "Do you know how hard it is to sell books?" And you know this
I
because you've been
know.
through it a couple of times. It is hard to sell books. Now my sales were good. They were healthy, and I get no better delight than when somebody rolls up on me and says like, "I read your book and it did this for me." And because you're choosing to spend a lot of time with somebody when you read their book,
Yeah.
that's yeah, like that's 200, 300 pages
Yeah.
of you and them. And so that's an honor that people would do that and finish the book. But I was crushed by that because as a writer and my first book, it's like, of course, you want to be able to say that because it helps you sell the second
For
book. That's the
sure.
most that's the most important
For
part.
sure.
It's like it helps you get that other book.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, okay. And I remember sharing that with my husband, and he was like really surprised to hear that. Like, oh, I was like, yeah, the reviews were great and everything, and it was trending in the right direction. And I was like, and I didn't make it. And I was just like, oh. And I try, I had to kind of correct my framing with that. It's like making a list or not making a list is not indicative of the book.
Right.
And but it was nevertheless good motivation and good perspective for me to have. I have another book that's coming out next year. It's a children's book though, and which was a different kind of writing because my memoir. I mean, it certainly has some adult stuff in it, for sure. And writing for kids is very different because you have to pretend like the world is not on fire,
Right.
and you actually have to give them some hope, which was not that wasn't the easiest, all right? Because I was like, "Ooh, how do I pretend
Right.
that we are not all doomed?" I don't know how to do
I have to
that,
do
but
that every day to make a funny video every day. I've got to avoid fire and brimstone, it feels like, and be like, man,
you know
what
what I'm
y'all think
saying?
about the best breads, y'all?
Yeah,
Because we
right.
all see what's happening, and it's just like, I
You
can't talk about that every day. I'm going to lose my mind.
exactly. So this it was, I think, cleansing to write a different type of
Yeah.
book and one that forced me into a different mental space so that I wasn't writing and thinking about like, oh, the first book didn't make the New York Times bestseller list and this one, I didn't put a lot of pressure and expectations on myself. So I'm really happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, and I totally get it. I was pre-grieving not making the list because to this day,
Mhm.
still I didn't say this publicly, but my book did not ever catch up to Marriage Be Hard. I don't know how I made the list. Excuse me. I don't know how I made the list. Do not know how. I went as hard as I could, but numbers wise, we barely made it the first time with Marriage Be Hard. And I was in the same category as Kamala. I think I was blessed that the category I was in the second time had 15 spots and I was
Mm,
13, whereas Marriage Be Hard
mm.
had 10 spots and I was 8. If I was in the same category, I wouldn't have made it. But people were like, trying to be like, well, Kev, blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't feel this way. Because when I had already accepted that I wasn't going to get it, my friends were like, it still matters. And it was like, it doesn't matter what y'all say. I have set this goal. If I don't reach the goal that I've set for myself, it doesn't matter if it's a logical goal. It doesn't matter that the money's guaranteed. None of that matters. My goal was to make the list. So if I don't reach that goal, first of all, if you don't make it the first week, your chances of ever making it,
Oh,
it's pretty
yeah,
much over.
they're done. Yeah, they're done. And
Unless,
and I don't think people realize that you brought up something important. What I didn't realize how much it mattered what other books were being released that week.
yes,
And so
huge.
I think the week that my book came out, I feel like it was Matthew Perry's memoir, which was huge. And it was somebody else's memoir, another big one that was like
Yes,
enormous. And your publisher, they try to, they know when certain books are coming out, so they're like, okay, we'll make sure you ain't coming out when Michelle
yes.
Obama's book is. But all that stuff matter, and it's an inexact formula
That's
a
another
little bit.
part about it.
Yeah, it
You
is
order on
because there's
Amazon
certain
or Audible. Audible sales don't count. It's
they don't
you
count,
don't
and
really know.
neither do, which I didn't know, certain bulk sales. So, like I said, I did a lot of speaking engagements at
Yes.
universities and things, and they all bought my book for sure. But the problem is that doesn't always count
No.
toward the New York Times bestseller because it's considered a bulk
And
buy.
they want you to do independent book sales, but like for
Right.
me, same issue. We did a book tour both times, and you think it helps you if you're talking sheer numbers, but sometimes it hurts you, or they think you fudged the numbers, and it's just
Mhm.
like, bruh. And you don't you when I saw Kamala Matthew McConaughey, Priscilla Presley, Bill O'Reilly, all released or in the thing my week, and I'm just like, bruh, I'm not that person. And the black people couldn't go to Target. I was just like, bruh, forget it.
You're right.
I'm just like, this ain't for me. But also, I'm not an author. I'm not a writer. So I would feel very different if, like, you are a writer. So it's like, this is your thing. So I imagine it's like, it's also happening during all this other stuff too. And I think that's just so, I appreciate you for being honest because I've talked to other people and everybody who I've talked to who didn't make the list is always like broken up. They just don't post about it. But
Right.
we people want to do well in the things that they do. They want to do well in everything they attempt, and it's not always money, oriented. It's not
I
always.
mean, this is the most extensive I've talked about it. Like I've never expressed my public disappointment because maybe a part of me, I guess because I am a writer by trade, you just kind of hit on it. Like I think there's a part of me that felt a little bit of shame about it.
Yeah,
Like I should have made the list because I write for a living, so of course I should have made the list,
right.
you know? And that was really hard to get over. But I think it was Lovey who said this, Lovey
Yeah,
Jones who said this.
love
And
lovely.
she yeah, I do love her. And she was great when I was writing the book. She was somebody who was a good sounding board for me. Um, but it is true. She was like, girl, I don't care how much time passed. Don't ever stop selling that book, no
Yes.
matter what. Like, don't stop, because look, Barack Obama's first book flopped.
Did it
I
really?
mean, quote unquote, at first. And then he got hot in them streets and that book went crazy. So this all goes back to why I'm gonna wind up on OnlyFans so I can sell that book, Kev. That's where I'm going with this.
Well, listen, Jamel, I truly appreciate it. I do want to say this about your book. It reminds me of like great films and great performances. Eddie Murphy, to me, should have an Oscar for Jimmy Early, his role in Jimmy Early. It doesn't matter that he didn't win. Alan Arkin, much respect to you. That's Eddie Murphy's Oscar. But many great films, great acting performances, great sports performances, they don't win. But it never changes how people feel about the thing that they read. And I'm glad that people have told you because at the end of the day, the awards and accolades and the money is great, but the true test of time is how your work made people feel. You know what I mean? If it was you were on the list and it didn't mean anything to anybody, you know, obviously probably you would rather have it mean something to somebody than to be awarded and people be like, I didn't read it, I didn't like it, I hated it. So I hope that you take some solace in the fact that the book is a good piece of work. It's not reflective of your writing skill or ability or anything like that. And nobody even knows how this works except New York and Times themselves.
Right.
I think it's purposely mysterious. Like it's not an exact.
No, it is.
Yeah, it's like
because they don't want people to know the formula because then they'll feel like people will try to sell to that.
Yeah.
And so like they do keep it purposely under a bit of a shroud of mystery. So but listen, that won't be my last book. And even this children's book was a detour into what I never expected to be writing that, but I still have more books in me because ultimately I want to write fiction. And so
Yeah.
um I do believe that one day I will make the list.
I believe
So
it. I
yeah,
believe
I'm
you're
gonna
far
just
too
put that out
talented to not make it. And I think, like sports, sometimes your down seasons is where you really learn how to be great. It's them championships that you don't win. And like, as we record this, I don't know when it'll air, but like the Aces, for example, this season, you would never think they'd be playing the way they're playing right now based on how they were playing at the beginning
there.
of
It
this.
started off 13 and
Man,
12.
I said, whew.
13 and 12. Yeah.
It's tough. And now as we record this, they're 2 games away from winning the final. I don't know if they're going to win or lose, but I know I didn't think they would even be here at the beginning of the season. But anyway, thank you, Jemele Hill.
I appreciate the pep
Of
talk, Kev.
course,
Definitely.
of course.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, let the people know where they can follow you, what they should look forward to, all the things you say at the end of a podcast.
Okay. First of all, buy my damn book. That's number one. Okay. Can we
First
just
and
start there?
foremost.
First and foremost, buy the book. All right. It's available wherever books are sold. You can find it. Okay. It's not a big deal. But no, people can catch me across all the socials. I really, one of the pivots I'm making is really going hard on YouTube. So I have like a ton of YouTube content. So, make sure that people like and subscribe and check that out. And they can definitely catch my writing in the Atlantic, of course, and hopefully they'll go back and listen to Spolitics. We had a great first season, a lot of really strong voices, and it's speaking to the moment that we're in right now.
Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Not My Best Moment with Kev on Stage and Jemele Hill. Thank you so much for listening, watching, reviewing, and we'll see you next week.